Hi there, this is Sean again from Amp, and today we're going to talk about writing message copy at scale. You have a lot of users. None of them will thank you for spamming them with one of a handful of generic messages day after day, week after week. At Amp, we've made it easy to write hundreds or even thousands of messages in just a few minutes, so you can keep things fresh for your users, and you can learn how each user likes you to talk to them. In my last video, I explained why we need to move away from the standard advertising design of user engagement, where we lump each user into a segment with his or her 57,000 closest friends. It's impersonal and dehumanizing, and users notice it, and they resent it. We need to move towards a guess, listen, adapt design, where we write enough copy that we can run a huge number of mini experiments to match up the right message with the right user, so segments are the output of our messaging, not the input. If you haven't seen that video yet, go ahead and check it out and then come back here. So, we need to write some messages. We've opened up the AMP Composer tool here. We're going to click on the Campaigns section and then the Formulas item on the menu, and then we're going to collapse this navigation bar so it doesn't take up all the screen. Now, a formula is a base template for a message. You define the variables in the formula, any part of your message that might appeal differently to a particular subset of users. We then compile a list of unique messages that represents all of the possible combinations of all of your variables. It's easier to show than to tell, so let's walk through that. Just click on the big, friendly Create Formula button at the top right of the screen. Now, let's assume we're a home goods app, a place where people can buy furniture or floor coverings or wall art and things like that. Now, we don't want to send a message about wall art to people who really want furniture, or messages about furniture to people who are really only interested in floor coverings. This is why we have formulas, so we can differentiate our messaging. So first, let's give our formula a name. We'll call it how about wall art general? Great. So we're going to write some messages specifically about wall art, and we can generate other formulas to cover furniture and floor coverings and things like this. I named this one general because that's what it is. If I wanted to write messages about, say, a wall art sale or seasonal wall art or something like that, I might put that in different formulas so I could use more targeted language. Now, let's label our formula. We'll find that over in the Settings tab. This is important. It's what tells the AMP system that all of these messages deal with wall art. We'll use that later when we start messaging to learn user preferences. So, wall art is an offering. It's one of the things that we offer through the app. And so in that list, we can see wall art. Now, you see a list here of several different things we might offer through a home goods app. I populated that earlier. In a different video, I'm going to show you how you can customize that list to be whatever you want it to be. But for right now, wall art's in there. We'll select that. Great. Now, we have wall art attached to the formula. And now we come back to the formula tab, and now we're going to write our first general wall art message. Now, don't overthink this, because this is just going to be the base for generating a whole lot of messages. Let's go with something simple. So how about, hi, check out our wall art. And then in the body of the message, we could do something like, we have great prices. Click here to see all the options. So if right now you're thinking, wow, Sean writes really terrible copy. Yes, I do. I write software for a living. You write copy for a living. That's the point. This is really easy for me, which means it's stupid easy for you. It shouldn't be hard at all to do a much better job than I do. So now that we have a wall art message, but look at the top of the screen, one message generated. We don't want to send this one message to everyone. So let's think about some other ways our users might be different from one another and therefore might respond to certain kinds of messages better than others. Let's look at this particular sentence here. We have great prices. Notice the pop-up of the personalization assistant when I highlight that. Now, We have great prices appeals to a particular kind of customer, what we might call the economic buyer. Economic buyers want a good price. You're telling them they're going to get a good deal, so the message as it stands may be just fine for them, but what about other kinds of users? Let's turn this sentence into a variable and add some alternative values to appeal to all the different value propositions that resonate with our user base. So I highlighted the sentence. I left off the exclamation point. I could have just as easily included it if I wanted. Now, as I said, this represents a value proposition, so let's go ahead and label it as a value proposition. Now, when we look, we now get several more options. We know it's a value proposition, but what kind of value proposition is it? Just as with the formula as a whole, we want to label as many of our alternates as we can. The labels are what allows the system to learn. So I'm going to click here on the drop down, and you can see different kinds of value propositions that we have defined. And again, this can be customized to your specific use case. These are ones I populated earlier. And there's economic buyers. So let's attach that as the label. Great. So now under value proposition, we have one alternate under economic buyer, and there it is right there. We have great prices, no punctuation at the end. That means that whatever we write is going to include that exclamation point at the end because it's only going to replace the part that was highlighted. So what could we write in the place of this sentence that could appeal to a different kind of buyer? Let's look at the options. All right, up here. First one, conscientious buyer. We don't have any alternates for that right now. This is someone who cares about sustainability, supporting local sellers rather than corporations, that kind of stuff. So what if we wrote under conscientious buyer, we sell items from hundreds of local artists. There. Now we have two messages because we have an alternate right here that replaces the highlighted text that we had originally with this new sentence that appeals to the conscientious buyer. Now, let's look at something for the personality buyer. These are people who are looking for a creative outlet, a way to express themselves. Let's go with, we have exactly what you need to make it your space. Again, I'm sure you could do better than I'm doing with these sentences, but you get the idea. This is something that appeals to someone's creative side. Now let's look at the popularity buyer. Popularity buyers trust other people's judgment more than their own. So they want to know that the thing works for a lot of people. So let's write something like, our top rated items have hundreds of reviews. Great. We'll add that as a label. And now let's try the convenience buyer. They care about getting the thing as soon as possible. No muss, no fuss. Let's try something like, all our art comes fully ready to hang. So we'll add that label here. So now we have added one alternate for each of our possible labels. And look up at the top of the screen. We've generated 5 messages because we can insert the 5 values for the variable into the original message we wrote. There's no reason why you have to write only one alternate for each value proposition. If you have 7 different ways you think you could appeal to, say, the personality buyer, then by all means, include all 7 of these alternates. That's great. That will give them all the same label, and the system will find your personality buyers and then choose the best of the available alternates to communicate with them. Still, I wouldn't say that writing 5 messages is writing at scale. Formula variables are most powerful when you combine them. For example, look at the header, where we start with this simple greeting, hi. It's nice and simple, but there might be better ways to get a user's attention. Let's create a few more options. So I'm going to highlight hi, and I'll include the exclamation point this time. And this is a greeting. It's just an aesthetic part of your message. We're going to call this a greeting, and I'm going to leave this one as unlabeled. I'm not going to worry about categorizing the different greetings to learn on them. That just means it's creating variation, but it's not necessarily something that we're going to need to learn on. You can learn on it. You can create different kinds of greetings that mean different things. I'm just, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of those. So we're just going to add a whole bunch of them into the unlabeled category. To give you an idea of ways you could categorize them if you wanted to, well, we have hi. That's just very simple. What about something a little more formal, like hello? What about something a little cheeky? Why, hello there. What about something a little folksy? Howdy. What about a question? Something like, did you notice? And then maybe something that has a little more urgency to it, like, you need to see this. So, like I said, we didn't label any of these, but you could have labeled them if you wanted to learn on that. Now let's look at the body. We tell users, click here to see all of our options. That's a call to action. So we could just variabilize the phrase, click here, but I think I'll do the whole sentence to give me some more wiggle room in what I can write as an alternate. So we're going to call this a call to action. We're going to keep that one unlabeled just for simplicity's sake right now, but of course you can always go in and label them however you want. So we have this kind of general click here to see all the options, but maybe we could go with something a little bit more minimalist. Just click here. That's it. Maybe something both minimalist and urgent. Click right now. Maybe something more invitational. Something like, come take a look. And then maybe something a little more, chummy, like, you want to. And then what if you have some users that really need it all spelled out for them? You can go extra explanatory and do something like, click on this notification to visit the app. No ambiguity there. So now check it out. Our base formula had 27 characters and 62 characters in the body. That's easy. We created 3 different variables from that base message. The value proposition variable had 5 alternates. The greeting variable had 6 alternates. The call to action variable had 6 alternates. All of that was easy too. It took just a few minutes. What's 5 times 6 times 6? You look up here at the top. We've written 180 messages in just a few minutes. Now, want to try out some different incentives? You'll get even more messages. Want to try out different emoji? You'll get even more messages. And all of this was just for wall art. If you have, say, 5 product lines, then this same base formula with the same number of variables would result in 900 messages. If we wanted, we could even do that right here by replacing the words wall art in the header with furniture or rugs or whatever we wanted. But we used some wall art specific language in some of our variables when we were talking about it being ready to hang. So you'd probably want to use more targeted language for different offerings, which is why you can create other formulas and label the entire formula for that product offering and then use product specific language in there. So this all goes back to what I said in the first video about the guess, listen, adapt design of user engagement. Don't start with segments and then write messages for each segment. Write tons of messages. Any way you think your users might be different, write a message that reflects that. It's not a load of work. We got 180 messages in just a few minutes, and that was with me explaining it all as I went along. Think up as many ideas as you can about how to reach out to your users, and then use the formulas and variables to turn those ideas into a stockpile of messages that can be used to experiment. So that raises a new question. How hard is it to run those experiments? Honestly, it's even easier than writing the formulas. A whole lot easier. I'll show you that in the next video. But for right now, this is how you can write messages at scale to drive your active discovery of which segments your users should be in and what their preferences are. Thanks for listening.